Welcome back, everybody. Season 2, episode 10, the season finale, because we do in these in 10 episode chunks. And we're back online, Molly and I. How are you?
I'm doing well. And you, sir?
I'm doing well as well. I avoided jury duty next week. I was actually kind of excited about it, but didn't end up being selected. So just
I get that. I think I would also enjoy or be interested in jury duty. Kind of weird, but yeah.
I've been worried that it was like I would be away for months and I wouldn't have my phone, and I was worried it was going to be that kind of thing because it was a federal case, but it ended up being just I finally answered the questions and they're like, no, okay, so I answered it right or wrong.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we haven't done an episode in many months, many,
yeah,
more than I thought.
we
I was
checked.
thinking like 2 months maybe, but
Yeah,
it
it was
is more
I'm not
like
going to
4 or 5.
say. Yeah,
But yeah, shit happens.
yeah,
So I thought we'd talk about mental health today. Does that work?
yeah.
So as per usual, I've prepared nothing. I'm just gonna wing it, based on what I know about my own mental health and what I've learned up to this point. Um, oh my gosh, I was gonna get questions on this and I didn't. Totally forgot to do that. Oh well. I'm just gonna give you an overview of as a dancer specifically, but as like a person and a woman, how I maintain my mental health. And you just chime in with any questions you have.
Okay.
So my mental health journey, at least in therapy, started when I was like 13. And I have gone really consistently to therapy since then as needed. There's been times where um my therapist has like kind of given me a like, oh hey, you know what, you might actually be good for a while, like you don't have a lot to talk about. And that actually felt wonderful because it was like, oh, like I've done so much to maintain my mental health that like I don't need therapy on this survival basis that I have in the past. So that's been interesting. But yeah, I kind of go back to therapy every time I kind of feel myself slipping in those ways. I'm feeling depressed or I'm feeling really anxious or unhappy, when my sleep gets really bad, things like that. Um, I also have just, I don't know, I've made mental health a priority my entire life above all else. Like definitely above work, always above work. Um, and even above my relationships with people that I love, because at the end of the day, I have nothing to offer them if I am not in a good place to offer from. And so when it comes down to, you know, giving to others or taking care of my mental health, I'm going to take care of my mental health every time. Also, I think there's part of that for me that the motivation comes from, wow, this is going to come across judgy, but people I know who don't take care of their mental health really are hard for me and are draining to me. And I don't want to be that to other people. Um, I feel like people who I see not taking care of their mental health are really having a toxic domino effect to those around them, the people that they work with, their family. And it all is really just stemmed in that they're not, taking care of that. They're not making that a priority and I don't think that they realize, I don't think people are maliciously doing this. I just think they don't realize the effects that their poor mental health are having on the people around them. I think it's unawareness. But yeah, so those are some of my thoughts. Do you have anything to chime in there, or should I just plug along with all my
No,
all my thoughts?
I just want to agree that yeah, you can't be of use to people if you're not in a good place yourself. So
And
Yeah.
not just you can't be of use, you become a burden,
Yeah.
like you become, and I, like I said, I don't think you're consciously doing that. And I know that we're all guilty of that. I'm not saying I've never been guilty of that. I'm just saying that, you know, I don't want to be that for somebody else. So I'm going to take care of my shit, you know?
Yeah. It's important.
Yeah. And so for me, some of the other things that look like mental health for me is something I've talked about on here, which is like I don't work all the time. And I get if like you're in a position that you feel like you have to work all the time, but I always try to like find a way to communicate to people that your work can be more productive if you're taking the needed time, the downtime, to regroup, to rest. And I think that applies to really any type of job you're having because I don't know, like your safety, even say you're doing something physical or mechanical or whatever, um, or potentially an error in your job could cost you your job. I just think I think we know we live in a very American hustle culture where it's like, bragging about how much you work, bragging about your overtime, bragging about, how hard you grind. And I'm just like not about that life at all, just because I feel like the quality goes down. Um,
For sure.
and and in the long run you end up your life being ends up being more expensive, whether that's like medical bills because your your physical mental health is deteriorating, or that you don't have time to eat properly because you're not making the time for that, or whether it's anything like that that can trickle into costing you more money. So I'm always about that, like when people are like, oh, I'm not making money, I'm not making money, I'm like, take a break, regroup, look at the areas of your life that you're leaking money because you're so busy working, making the money that you're not even taking the time to be like, oh shit, look at my budget. Like I'm spending crazy in this area or that area. Um, so yeah, also I need to throw in there that I'm not a doctor or a psychologist. I'm a enthusiast of mental health. I'm an enthusiast of psychology. I think that's actually one of my favorite parts about being a stripper is that I like observing people. I like, you know, watching their behaviors and trying to figure them out. And and yeah, so I'm just an enthusiast here with a lot of opinions um that have some backing, which is my own success in my own mental health. Not that I have, perfect mental health all the time, but that for someone who's had a lot of trauma in my past, in my childhood, and in my adult life, who works at really high stress job, who just has kind of a lot going on. I think the fact that I don't have just constant mental breakdowns is a win. And I think if you're not having constant mental breakdowns, I would also applaud you. Like life's fucking hard. And just, and not that I don't ever have them. I think I've said that on here. I have them. I absolutely have them. And I have to reassess my balance of my life. Um, Constantly. I wouldn't say I constantly have breakdowns, but I'm constantly assessing like, oh, this isn't working for me or that's not working for me. And sometimes it takes having like a breakdown for me to figure out what's not working for me. So
Yeah, I'm always making adjustments too. I work from home, both jobs. And, I tried with Instacart as the thing that gets me out of the house. And, in March and April, it was so inconsistent for the type of orders I did that's when, starting in the beginning of this month, I started going on morning hikes. It got me outside, it got me moving, and just I noticed when I got back, I'm much more motivated and energetic and stuff. So always making those adjustments of things that can make things better, but not necessarily take up, too much time or cost anything.
yeah, um, those things pay off dividends, like yes, it is a time and energy investment, but the amount of energy you get, the better mental health you get, the better health you get is worth all of it. Um, Recently I've been changing my sleep schedule a little bit and I'm starting to work more day shifts just as an experiment because I think I'd like to have a little bit more of a regular sleep schedule. I think I'm a night owl by nature, but with working so many nights, I'm going to sleep at like 5 a.m. and I'm like, this isn't super what I want. Um, so I've kind of adjusted to a new schedule, and part of doing that is I go outside and I get sun at the time I want to wake up every day. And I learned recently, and this is also something I feel like is really important, is really advocating for yourself health wise. So the reason I say that is because I learned recently that people in my family don't metabolize vitamin D very well. And I didn't learn this because a doctor told me. I learned it because I found out from my sister that that was a problem that my dad had. And then I had blood work done and I had to look, they said all my levels were in normal range. And I looked them up myself just because I was curious. So I started looking, like Googling, because you can, look at your chart like in the app when you get blood work done. And I looked at all the levels and I realized that I was low on vitamin D and I had been taking supplements of vitamin D every day for months. And so, of course, a doctor's not going to notice that. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, she might be low on vitamin D, whatever. But I had been taking like not only a lot of vitamin D, but like double the dosage of vitamin D. And I was still somewhat low. So that was important for me to know. And I upped my vitamin D even more. And then I made sure that I get outside every day with no sunglasses on and no contacts in and get sunlight directly in my eyes. Um, and it just was interesting to me to know how many people in my family have had depression or things like that, that I feel like it's probably tied to that genetically we have a problem absorbing vitamin D. So my point in that whole story is that like there's times when you're going to have to be very proactive about figuring out what your health or mental health things are correlated to, and it's going to take effort and it's going to take digging and it's going to take you making that important and making that that your health is the most important thing that you have. Um, so yeah, I love that you're getting out and doing hikes. I also had bought an elliptical. I don't think you can see it. You might be able to see it behind me.
Yep.
And I got that because I'm not really an outdoorsy person. I'll go out and drink my coffee outside. And my joke is that if somebody invites me outside, I'll go outside. But my childhood we spent in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was beautiful, but we just weren't outdoorsy people. We were like city folk, you know? Um, so I have to make kind of a conscious effort to leave the house because I don't have any desire to go outside. I like looking out the window like I am right now, and it's beautiful outside, but like I don't really care about being out there. But it's good for you. But anyways, back to my elliptical. So I got the elliptical because what I really want to do, what I'm really passionate about, is binge watching massive amounts of TV. And so I can get on my elliptical and I'll do an hour and it's like nothing because it's just I'm doing what I actually want to do, which is watch TV. And I feel like I've made this joke recently at work because people, have I told you this? People like to ask what I like to do with my time.
No, I don't think you have.
So it's just a very consistent, question that I get. And throughout the years, it's been different things, anything from like whatever I think they want to hear to like trying to think of things that sound interesting. And then these last few years, I've just noticed that when people ask that question, I'm just like, I know this isn't what you want to hear, but I really like watching TV. I I want to just watch TV with my free time. And I don't know why there's this stigma about that. There's so many people that are like, I don't own a TV. And I'm like, that's great. Good for you. You must not be an introvert. You must want to go out and be around people all the time or something. Which I'm jealous and that's great. But like that's not me. I just want to watch TV. Um, and to me, this ties into the mental health thing kind of in a funny way, which is there's this really great book. I think I brought up this book before called Quit Like a Woman.
Yeah, I believe you have. Yeah.
It's a good book. So I either don't drink or I drink minimally, or I take large breaks of drinking. Right now I'm on a break since January of drinking. Anyways, in this book, one of the things that she brings up that I really liked and that really makes sense to me is that like you're going to try to cope, not cope, you're going to try to cope and indulge in certain ways. But maybe pick the ones that are least harmful to you and your family. So for me, like drinking is something that I'm like, that's harmful to me, my health and potentially my relationships, depending on like, like if I fight with someone when I'm drunk or something like that. Or even just that, a hangover can make me really depressed and that's going to affect the people around me. Um, but that she kind of brings up in this book that like maybe indulge in binge watching TV. And I was like, yay!
I'll take
You
that
know,
advice.
I'll take that advice. And not even, and I like that she's not saying that that's like good, but she's saying like it's pretty benign, like it's less harmful. It's time consuming, it's whatever, but it's less harmful than other things. And for me, I can justify it because, I've studied screenwriting. I care about film. I care about movies. I actually have a short film playing at a film festival in San Francisco in a couple weeks. Actually, it might be less than that. Anyways, so like my passion's there. I care deeply about movies and TV and hope and have worked in that field and hope to continue to find ways to work in that field, whether as an actress or whatever. As a writer, I think writer is clearly what I would prefer, but I'm kind of just like anywhere you want to put me, I'm happy. Whatever gets my foot in the door, I'm fine with. So anyways, I have a film, that's going to be at a film festival that I'm excited about. But yeah, like I can justify that. But even if you couldn't, even if you didn't have this deep burning passion for that, what's wrong with having a deep burning passion just for storytelling? We have storytelling festivals, we value that, but we want to value it in like certain ways, like a storytelling festival is highbrow and like better than somehow, but watching lots of TV isn't. And I'm like, how does that make sense? They're both storytelling. Um,
And there's such good TV right now, you
I
know.
really believe that. And oh my gosh, the writer's strike is going on right now, by the way. Um, which I don't have a lot to say on. I have been following it and I'm like in support of the writer's strike, but wouldn't really speak on it because I'm not like in it, I'm not a writer right now for anything, any shows. But actually, I am, just not any that have been, are being produced currently. But anyways, so there's this thing, the stigma with TV, and maybe I've said this, and you tell me if I have, because you're that guy who has to tell me the things I've said over and over again. But I really believe that in the future, TV will be much more akin to books because
Yeah,
there was a time I think, have I said this?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, I really think that's what the future is going to be like. I think there'll be less stigma with that because we're learning with documentaries, we're learning with stories. How is that different? How is that less than? It's not. Anyway, so I just really feel like people should lean into the things that maybe are a guilty pleasure, but like aren't really hurting anyone. And and if it is, then maybe, pull it in, if your spouse or your kids are like, wow, you are only watching TV, you're not spending any time with us or communicating with us. But sometimes I think even that's okay because whether if it's a choice between I'm going to go out and like use heroin or something to like, cope, like, or I'm going to zone out for a long period of time, maybe an even extended period of time because, I'm trying to cope with something traumatic. I feel like that's way better. So pick the better coping mechanism, but then always be building them. And I think I've talked about that too. Always be building your tool belt of things that make you feel good and things that help you and collect all the things that do that. I think we've talked a little bit about meditating on here.
Yes.
yeah, so I won't go much into that, like, but I know meditation is a part of my toolkit. I know making sure I'm sleeping right is part of that toolkit. Physical exercise, getting outside. Recently I've been doing the chiropractor thing because I've had it's called something, I totally want to look it up, but there's something up with my spine that like is causing nerve pain through my back and my arms. And I woke up screaming like 3 days in a row. Like I would wake up and I'd go to move and I would like shout. And it was actually really scary. And I was kind of like, um, sorry, I got a text message and I got distracted. But yeah, that was scary. And it was hard because I had to take off work for that time. And I went and saw the chiropractor, I think like 6 times in like 2 weeks. And that was hard because there was a piece of me that wanted to be like, just push through this, just go to work, just da 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 da. And my chiropractor even said at one point, he's like, if you have to work, he's like, if you have to, he's like, then you could go back. And I didn't because I was like, it's not worth it to me. I'd rather take really good care of myself. I'd rather make sure that it's, you know, at least like 80% better before I'm going to go back. And then I'm going to take it easy when I do go back. So, so yeah, those are some of my things. What are some of your coping things? Some that are good for you and some that are like guilty pleasure things.
Um, we just got tickets to Train, the musical group Train. And
Nice.
they're cheesy as fuck, but they are a guilty pleasure. And this is like the fourth or fifth time that we've seen them. So, that's a guilty pleasure that I'll jump on anytime they're close. We even went to Albuquerque to see them. So, um, what's some other guilty pleasures and things that Diet
I
Coke? I gotta have my Diet Coke.
Yeah, which isn't great for you, but it's a
Oh,
lot better for you than a lot of other things.
yes, and I've been eating salads and stuff more, so I'm counterbalancing the Diet Coke in some ways, but ways I'm just making sure I set time apart from my wife and son, because when they get home they kind of go off on their own, but I also try to push to spend time with them, and that usually like brings me you know up somewhat, and you know just getting outside a little bit, because these four walls get to be a bit much after a while. So just
Yeah, I love what you're saying about spending time with people that you care about. That's something that I made like a New Year's resolution to do. And it's been a little hard for me because I am so independent and so introverted to the point of like I really, really can enjoy one-on-one, but like you add one more person and I'm feeling stress and I can feel that building for me the entire time I'm with people. Um, and so and so that's hard because I want to spend time with people, but sometimes we can't always do it one-on-one. But I've made a greater effort to catch up with friends to kind of make small realistic goals about like, oh, I'd like to see this friend at least once a month. I'd like to, touch base with this friend this much. I'd like to, you know, spend more quality time with the people that I love because, time gets away from you and then you're like, I didn't invest in that relationship in the ways that I wish I had.
no,
And I'm the same, and I feel better afterwards. I can feel myself kind of gripe and groan about it internally because it feels obligatory. I think anything for me that feels that way, which is kind of all my relationships, because I have a weird personality where I kind of I think it has something to do with growing up in a big family and being the youngest and just and it being an introverted kid in person who just wanted to be by myself and feeling what felt like constant overwhelmment of massive amounts of people being around. Um, and so it's hard for me to do that, but it's an effort I'm trying to make because even though I don't always see these people or make the efforts to see them, I care about them so deeply. I think about them often. And so it feels good this year to be like, I'm actually making that a priority. Priority, sorry. And same with my daughter, she's coming over today, and I really try to make that a really quality time with her. And it seems to be really working. I feel very connected to her. I feel very like I know what's going on with her, and like she will talk to me, and when she leaves, I feel like "Oh, that was nice. That made my heart, it soothed my heart to be with her and to have it be pleasant and to feel like I connected with her. And sometimes we don't even talk that much. Sometimes we just play cards and go get Chick-fil-A, and there's not a lot. But then it's nice when she does want to share. I think she's at that age where like when she does want to share, I'm trying to be cool and not show her that I'm like, I'm so excited that you're sharing with me. Um, I'm trying to act cool and like, I don't really, it's not a big deal. Um, but I'm so stoked when she does share things with me and, tells me about her life, and I'm just like, it's the best. But yeah, what else? What other good mental health things could we share about? Ooh, let's talk about cutting out people who rob you of your mental health. I am of the school of thought that I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's your best friend, your brother, your aunt, your parents, your boss. I don't care who it is. You can politely, with love, detach from someone and hand them back all of their shit. And I can kind of tell you the ways that I've done that, if and since that could be something somebody wants to know. But you really can be like, nope, that's yours. I lovingly, respectfully hand that back to you and don't get caught up in your bullshit. Have you had to do that?
Me, no. I don't talk to people much. I have, Steve, who I podcast with, and more kind of friends where it's just every once in a while we talk. But I've been on the opposite end of it, good and bad. I had a friend almost a year ago, just one day, stopped
I
talking.
remember this.
Yeah, and we've been friends for 5 years, and nothing was strange at that time, and so
You
that's
know,
been rough.
I've had a few of those too. And I have wondered, what their reasoning was because there's a few people that I didn't ever get an answer about what that was about. But I did have someone reach out recently, actually like a ex, and there was a little bit of conversation. And what I did like about what I got out of it, because he was someone who kind of ghosted me. He was actually the only person I dated, because it's not cool to say this, and I don't think I'll get a lot of love for this, but I don't think from my memory I've ever been dumped ever. But the most similar thing to being dumped was this relationship that I had where this guy just kind of wasn't feeling me, um, wasn't, reciprocating those feelings. And this was the person who reached out. And it was nice because I felt like the clarity I did get was that this person wasn't in a position to have a relationship, and that they still weren't, and I'd known them for like 15 years and they had never had that. And to kind of talk to them and to find that out and realize that, I was like, oh wow, that really wasn't about me. That was about them and their stuff. um which is something I think I've said on here a lot. I'm having like a deja vu moment. Um, but yeah, that potentially sometimes someone ghosting you or leaving your life, it might be something you did. It might be a toxic behavior you had, and that might be something
They're
for
very
your life.
possible. Yeah, I'm not perfect, and it was very open friendship. We could talk about just about anything, and you know, I could have said something, or she could have just had something major happen in her life, or she told something
That,
about me and they said just cut him out. I don't know, and I think that's what's been annoying me the most. But
yeah, I've had a few friends do that, and I've done that to a few friends. Um, and you're right in that you don't it's not great to make assumptions about it because you just don't know unless someone
yeah,
has told you and then you take what they say at face value. Um, there's no point in like trying to figure that out, because you just don't know. I mean, I think there's a point I guess there's a point in trying to figure out to the point of, is there something I could have done better? And can I get feedback from them on that? And if you can't, then yeah, you are left to be like, well, what did I do? Well, maybe it was this. Well, either way, you know what? That could be a part of my personality that I might want to shift or I might want to work on. But yeah, sometimes you don't know it. It could be a life event. It could be a major life thing. And for me, a lot of that happens for me, like where I'm not meaning to ghost someone or I'm not meaning to be distant. It's just I really can only I draw my attention back into myself because I need every bit of it. Um but yeah, I back to, when I have cut people out, I try to be very open and honest about it. I try not to be someone who just kind of like removes themselves, but I also like to conserve my energy. And so sometimes if I perceive that this person doesn't have the emotional maturity to handle my honesty, or maybe are not deserving of my honesty or my communication. Like I can think of one specific situation with a past very close friend that, I never addressed the things that happened. And sometimes I still question that decision and I still question, even though the friendship ended years ago, it's someone I'm still exposed to. And I've thought many times about trying to articulate to them like what happened for me, but I haven't because I don't believe them to be open or responsive to that. It just feels like that could be a really wasted time for me, a lot of wasted time and energy to try to let them know how they hurt me, how they broke my trust or whatever.
yeah.
Um but yeah, I'm a big fan of just like saying no. I love the word no. Have we talked about no?
I think so. Yeah.
I think no. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the word no because I think I don't know if we've talked about or you've heard about good girl conditioning. I think a lot of women have a really hard time saying no, and so I'm a big fan of it. Especially when it comes to your mental health, I think it can always be something you check in with anyone asking anything of you and go, how does that work for me? Is that going to work with my stress level? Is that going to work with, what I have on my plate? And to be okay saying no. And if we talked about that you feel guilty, like there's no boundaries you set that you won't feel guilty about, especially as a woman. And just kind of accepting that like you shouldn't feel bad, you shouldn't feel guilty, but just kind of accepting that like you will and that's okay. You'll survive. You'll survive feeling guilty. I promise.
And
Um,
just in general, nobody owes anybody anything.
yeah. I think the
Even
only
a partner and stuff. They don't necessarily, you have
yeah,
obligations to each other, but you don't, you know,
I think you only owe something to your children. I mean,
yeah,
if we're going to get right down to it, like, and even then, you're going to have times that you can't give in the ways that you want, or in the ways that they want because you're human and you're imperfect and that's okay. But that, yeah, if anyone is owed something by you, And even then, I think only children under a certain age. I think you're obligated and you should care for your children emotionally and all that, but, like, there's only a few years where, like, their needs come above everything, you know what I mean? And then they become pretty self-reliant, you know? Like, you just need to be there as, like, you know, providing for them until they're an adult and providing for them emotionally and things like that. But yeah, I feel like no adult is entitled to anything from you. Um, and I've had to find ways of setting boundaries with people at work, with, you know, superiors at work, with friends, with family. I'm definitely also like a no phone call person. I'm that generation of like, don't call me on the phone. You're stressing me out. Um,
Yeah, we've never had a phone call.
why? Why would we?
Yeah.
You know, like text it, or I also enjoy Marco Polo. That's another way I've made efforts to find ways to connect with the people I really love and care about in ways that are easier for me or ways that are more comfortable for me. Which is I love sending Marco Polos. I'll catch someone up in a few minutes and then send that, and then they send me a video a few minutes back. And I think finding ways that work for you to connect with people, and you know, that's I find more success that way. Also, I love this. Have you seen the meme? It's something about let's normalize doing like running errands with your friends. And I love that. Like, I've had times where I've hung out with a friend and they are cleaning their house and maybe I've helped, or maybe we just talked while they cleaned their house, or I've been cleaning my house, or we ran to the post office, or we went to the grocery store or something. And I'm like, multitasking, that's what you need.
Yeah, the past couple weeks, Lennon has come with me to run errands, and he's also looking for a job. So I've taken him to places to ask about jobs, and
Yeah.
those were fun. So yeah, I love that.
What's better for the people you love than to, yeah, help them be productive while you're spending quality time with them? And honestly, that's what a lot of the times when my daughter does open up is when she's not really like, you know, I'm not pushing to talk to her, or I'm not like probing her with questions. We're just out and about doing something, and then she's like, "Oh yeah, by the way," and I'm like, "Yes, you fell right into my trap." um, but yeah, let's see, what else do I do for my mental health? Hmm, long, drawn out pause.
This is this is death to podcasting, like dead silence. So, but
Bummer.
I'm not thinking of anything either.
I will say I'm gonna see if I can talk about. I don't know. There's different ways and levels of cutting people off, and I'm trying to think of applicable things for people at work because I've definitely had, you know, people at work, and I've just found ways to avoid them. Whether that's like putting on my headphones, and listening to something I actually want to listen to, because sometimes people be venting at work, and sometimes I'm like really there for it, and I have the space for it, and I actually love being engaged in it and really have feedback for them and want to be engaged in that way. And other times I don't. And I think that's okay to like remove yourself to work in a different area, or to put on your headphones, or you know, to do whatever you need to do to not get tapped the fuck out, you know? Because I've definitely been even just adjacent to some conversations that I'm like, whoa, I'm exhausted now. And maybe that's something to be aware of too. Like, be aware of if you're trauma dumping on people, you know? Like, I think there's a time and a place for it. And I don't even know where the fine line is there. But maybe just having an awareness of like, am I laying too much on people that I work with? Maybe I need a professional. Maybe I need to be talking about this with a professional. And so again, I just couldn't advocate more for talking to someone and finding the right therapist, because that's also a task, is that you got to find someone who clicks with you. Um, there's also this actually came from, shoot, I forgot his name, but he was a child actor. I think his last name's Peck. Anyways, he wrote a book recently and he's been through rehab and things like that, which again brings me back to 12-step work. If anyone's interested in mental health, I feel like 12-step work is effective. Um, if you haven't heard of that, look it up. But he said something about finding, and I don't love the way that he put this, but I still get the sentiment and it still resonated for me, which was finding your apostles. I'm not sure I like being, putting myself in line with Jesus and calling people my apostles, but I think the sentiment really was find the people who are, the wind at your back. Find the people that are bringing something to the table for you. Find the people that are your cheerleaders. Um, find the people that are not stressing you the fuck out all the time, and make time for them and surround yourself with people like that. Um, and I've said this, but I'll say it again because I think it's worth saying again. Sometimes you can't find those people, and you have to look really hard. But with online, you can find people with common interests and you can find people with similar goals. And I think you can reach out and find those people. But that sometimes that could just be the books that you read because, or the TV that you watch, like surrounding yourself with the types of people you want to be around. That sounds weird, but do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
I don't think that's a replacement for finding the right people, but I think it can help you learn what you're looking for and the types of people you want to be around.
And if it's not, those people aren't available or that type of situation isn't available, but these other things do work for you in that way, it's not wrong. There's
Mhm.
not a wrong way to do anything. It's what works, you know. Don't
Yeah.
trigger
Anyone
anybody
that,
or anything, but
anyone that I admire, and if they have a book out, I will listen to it. Every time. Anyone I admire who has a podcast, I'm going to try. I don't super listen to podcasts, but I make an effort to, because if someone's doing something in a way that I'm like, damn, they're really tearing it up. I'm like, maybe I should spend some time with them and find out, some things about what's working for them. Um, let's talk about the things I'm bad at mental health wise. Um, I don't really want to do this, but I'm going to do it for the people on YouTube. I don't know if you can see, but my house is kind of constantly a disaster. And I actually think it would be much, much better for my mental health if I had better cleaning habits. But I've tried
it's tough.
and I'm not great at it. I'm kind of a cluttered person. But so was Einstein. Maybe I've said that before, but
There you go.
Einstein was also messy. So, but yeah, it's something I still work on and something I'm actually thinking of investing in. Like I've had a cleaning person come before. I think it might be something worth investing my money into. Because I do think that it's good for you to have an organized space. I really do think that's a real thing. Um, what else am I bad at? You know what? I've gotten better at a lot of things, like maybe not the cleaning thing, still work in progress there. But I definitely could take on other people's problems and make them my own. I was like a pro at that. And I've gotten really good at just not doing that anymore. And it took a lot of work and lots of effort and retraining of my brain and really changing the way I think. Um, which, if you're thinking about or wanting to change the way you think, I know that the processes I've had have, or that have worked for me the best, are taking baby steps into the right direction, which sometimes you can't go from everything's the worst and everything's fucked to like everything's sunshine and rainbows. That's like a toxic positivity type of thing. But you can question a thought if you're having a negative thought. This was a process that I think started with therapy for me. I actually can't remember. I can't remember where I got this, but to go when I have a negative thought or a thought that's starting me maybe down a spiral type of way of thinking negatively, that I'll just question the thought and maybe where it came from. I'll think something like, let me think of something. Maybe I'll be critical of my appearance or something like that. I might go, well, is that true? I think is that true is one of my top things. Um, but I'll take it even further than that. I'll be like, let's see. Sorry, I got distracted. But I'll be like, I'll basically make myself prove that that's true in my head or not true. But basically, I think just the question itself takes a little bit of the weight off of it to be like, to question something, I feel like, I don't know, it makes it lighter. And then to question where it came from, because sometimes it's like, is that a way? And this is something that more you probably will need to be guided through therapy to do. But like, is that the voice of my mom? Is that the voice of my dad? Is that the voice of a teacher? Is that the voice of an ex-boyfriend who was verbally abusive? You know, like um to kind of question where that's coming from and how genuine of a place is that coming from? Or is that just a pathway of thinking that developed from an event or from a relationship or from someone very influential like a parent? Um, and so that's some of the ways I've disrupted patterns of thinking that weren't working for me. And I know it was something I still do. There's something I read in a book about PTSD recently that I also found interesting was that, and that I actually watched myself do, which was I was able to start lessening the criticism and judgment of myself, but I had it some times where that was transferred onto other people, and my criticism and judgments of them became a little harsher. Um, but it was interesting because it was nice to know that that was just part of that process and that I could apply the same things I had used to get myself off of being so critical and judgmental of myself. I could apply the same things when thinking about other people. Um, but yeah, those are some of the processes I've been through with that and what's worked for me. How do you handle, avoiding a spiral type of downward spiral thing that I feel like is just something that happens to everybody?
Yeah. Um, just if I feel myself going that way, I try to like distract myself mostly, because I'm kind of on my own schedule and stuff like that. So I can, you know, I can pivot my life kind of whenever I want to get things done or figured out. So like if I'm just sitting here working or just kind of zoning off, I put on some music or a TV show just so my own thoughts aren't like percolating or perpetuating in my mind. So
Yeah. Music is
distraction.
yeah, music is proven to, release endorphins and do all kinds of pleasant things to your brain. So I'm the same. Sometimes I feel guilty because I'm like, can't you just be alone with your thoughts? What's wrong with you? Why you gotta have the TV on? Why you gotta have, which is just more proof that like I'm constantly in a state of trying to have better ways of thinking, but and not be so hard on myself. But but I think I've gotten good at being like, you know what? This feels good and that's okay. And I don't have to feel bad about that. And it's okay to feel good. I don't know. But, and not to feel like, I don't know, you're not good enough or you're somehow, yeah, lazy. Like I feel lazy a lot, which I am sort of lazy. There's another term I think I came across. I'm trying to think of, or phrase I came across, because I would say lazy seems like a bad quality, but in other ways it's a good quality because I think I like to find the quickest, easiest way to figure something out. And that's actually like a strength, like
Yeah,
problem solving, like that's awesome. But
I won't.
also,
I won't run errands unless I've got like three or four things to do. I have a tough time just leaving the house to run one errand.
yeah, I
Like
want
I
to
have to
like,
go to the bank, so I'm gonna do two or three other things tomorrow along with that. You know, because just
yeah, that's smart. That's brilliant. Um, Sorry, there was something else I was going to touch on. I really should have prepared and made some notes, but maybe we should bring it back to the club. But I think I might have said everything I want to say about mental health in the club. But to reiterate, I think one of the top things I would say is if a customer is being abusive to you, it doesn't matter how much money they're giving you, you need to bounce.
yeah.
Um, and I think, finding that person, whether it's your significant other or a best friend or a therapist or a coworker, and then confiding to them. Um, I'm not a fan of like the room. I think it's nice actually to come back and like to have a venting session a little bit, but I like to try and keep that succinct and really more information based so that people can avoid a person and having a nasty interaction with them that could affect the rest of their shift. I try to keep that more like informational and less, like charged, I guess. Um, but yeah, I think it's hard sometimes in our industry to let go of the money. Because sometimes some of the most toxic people have the most money. And I just don't think it's worth it. I really don't. And I haven't seen it be worth it for other people. I've seen it just have long-term effects on their mental health, especially if they're doing it over and over again and really tearing down, the mental health that they've built for themselves. Um, so yeah, I don't think there's any amount of money that's worth that.
Is that type of situation becoming more or less common lately?
Lately, I haven't seen it change.
Okay.
I think anyone that works at a bar knows that when people drink, there's a potential for them to become abusive or inappropriate.
Yeah.
And that's just something Um, and I'm trying to think of ways I let that go because it's not like you can avoid it all the time. You can't. You cannot avoid it all the time if you work in an industry where you're dealing with people, even much less people at a bar, much less people around, women who aren't dressed. Um, and I'm trying to think of ways I let it go. I think I write it down sometimes. Sometimes I tell it to someone. Oh yeah, that's kind of what I was saying was like to be able to verbally ventilate. That's something that was in this PTSD book I was um listening to, and verbal ventilation is very helpful. But I think you got to find the right person for that. Because one, if you tell it to someone you don't trust, they may go tell that person and that's going to cause problems, or they might tell other people and they might, whatever, misconstrue something that you said. And so yeah, finding the people that you trust. And again, like if there's not that person, then just write it down. Like write it down on a piece of paper, throw it away, burn it, or write it in your notes in your phone. Delete it if you want later, if you feel like. And also, I like to put things into my dancing or put things into my creative projects. So a lot of the struggles I've had are in some of my writing I've been doing, or in I wrote a really, really angry poem a while back, and it was pretty long and it was really angry. Actually, most of my poems have been very angry. Um, but I feel a lot of rage and I feel a lot of anger. And a lot of that really is about the ways I've been treated and the ways women have been treated at large. And and a lot of that is also specific to the treatment of women in my industry. Um, but I wouldn't say that that's exclusive to that, especially because I have felt angry long before I was a dancer. And have we talked about my anger? That I've taken anger management?
I I can't recall either way at the moment. I, I don't think
Um,
you've mentioned the classes though. No.
I wasn't court ordered, but I did it voluntarily. I did the one that they do court order you to do. And I've done a lot of work on that. And what I've learned is that like anger is good and healthy and okay. And I'm not sure that I knew that or internalized that for most of my life. And so to like accept my anger and then find outlets for it has been a process for me. Um, being okay with being angry or, you know, finding ways to let that out and not let it build up inside me has been a journey for me. Um, I it hasn't happened as much in recent years. I think I've matured past it, but what that looked like in a lot of my younger years was like an outburst a couple times a year that would look like me breaking things or if someone, I mean, I think we've talked about when I've been at work, when someone has like tried to touch me or something, I've reacted very like violently. Not tried to touch me, I mean like when someone's assaulted me essentially. I think sometimes I've played that down often actually. I think I've played down what got me to react in the ways that I had, which was essentially if someone has sexually assaulted me at the club, they're gonna get my hands put on them. Like end of story. And always maybe that just a reminder, since this is, you know, a topic of the podcast, never touch a stripper at any club unless she's given you really, really clear consent. Like, not only is that not acceptable at my club, um, because of the laws, it's not acceptable at other clubs either. Like, don't just go up and be touching people. Like, a dancer will put your hands where she wants them, where she's comfortable with them being. And if you are unsure about where to put your hands, just ask her where you can put your hands. Like it's there's some weird thing about people thinking that consent is not part of sex work. And I'm like, actually, it's the most important part of sex work. Like it's hugely important. And it's really pissing me off. And it's not, it's men, it's women, it's whoever. Just don't fucking touch people unless they've made it abundantly clear to you. And clarify if you need to, like that it's an acceptable time to do that. And don't be shocked if they pop you, you know, like if you put your hands on them and they haven't given you consent, you just sexually assaulted them. Of course they're lashing out at you. Of course they're violently reacting to you. Um, So yeah, wow. I really like talking about this kind of stuff because it really I'm processing as I'm talking about it. And and the last step of learning anything is to share what you've learned with other people. Have you ever heard that? Have we touched on that?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I don't always love talking about things or sharing my thoughts, or sometimes I'm like feel insecure about that, but it helps me so much to be able to share the things that I've learned. It internalizes things in me in such a real way that I'm just grateful to be able to do it. Um, but yeah, I have had a lot of anger issues that I have, and it's funny because now that I'm processing this in real time, I'm not sure how much of them were issues as much as it was hard for me to accept anger as being a part of my human experience
Yeah.
and that I couldn't get around that. I wanted to meditate my way out of anger, and that's not real.
It's okay to be angry. It's just what you do with the anger that destroys or what's the word I'm looking for? Uplifts the situation.
Yeah, and if you can find the best, healthiest ways for you to do that, but I also am someone who's like, if you need to physically defend yourself, that's okay too. Never put your hands on somebody first for legal reasons, right? Um, but defend yourself if you need to, but also read the room because sometimes
Yeah.
I don't know. Anywho,
And I've seen her arms. You do not want to be smacked around by her. She is.
yeah, don't do it. Have I told you my theory on, because I've only been in like one fight, but my theory on fighting is that I say I don't know that I'll win because I don't have a lot of experience in fighting, right? I don't know that I win, but you will deeply regret it. Have I said that on here before?
Probably that does sound.
That's my thing on fighting. I'm prepared to do it if it ever goes there. And my physical fights I have had have mostly been with men, which is not cool. But
Would
let's
you like
see.
me to check the questions that have trickled in
Oh,
the
really?
past
We have some?
month? They've just been trickled in every once in a while. You know, some are
Yeah.
crazy and bizarre as
Wow.
we've seen in the past, but all right, inbox. Okay. This one, I don't know how long ago. Is everything okay? I'm worried about you.
Is this the anonymous one?
Yeah.
Huh. Is everything, I mean, should I answer that for now, like in this moment?
Yeah.
I am okay, but I'm a personing, so it doesn't mean I don't have struggles or that I'm actually going through some shit right now for sure that I can't actually talk about. I've got some legal issues that I'm not at liberty to discuss, but yeah, I'm okay. Um, I wonder why they asked that. I know that sometimes people don't get the type of personality that I have or the type of humor that I have, and sometimes look at things that I post or do um, through a lens that isn't understanding of who I am and how I joke or how dry my humor can be. Um, or sometimes I'm not totally okay. And I try not to share that on social media. I try to keep a certain image on social media. I feel like I've cultivated that specifically as a tool to make money and less like the podcast is much more of an outlet for me to be who I actually am and to share how I actually feel. I don't think a lot about how the podcast is going to affect my money because I don't do the podcast to make money, which I have made money off of the podcast in the sense that I often have people come in and I've never met them before and they're like, "Oh, hey, I listen to your podcast." And then they tip me and I'm like, "Oh, wow, cool. This wasn't the intention of this, for me. It was more to share myself and who I actually am and to educate people in any way that I could about the industry." But sorry, me and my tangents. But yeah, occasionally I will kind of show a little more on social media if am wanting to pop off about something or I am feeling a type of way about something. But for the most part, I think I keep it pretty like I'm an entertainer. I'm here to entertain you. I hope this is entertaining to you. But yeah, that's kind of a funny question.
The next one was, have you done drugs? And I think we've talked about.
Have we hit that a few
Yeah.
times? Yeah, I think we've gone pretty in depth with this. But yeah, I'm not a fan really, you know. Yeah, not a huge fan of the the drug lifestyle. And as I think people who've listened know, I'd go as far as to say I'm pretty anti. I'm not like dare anti, you know, like I'm just more have trauma associated with drug use. And so just have kind of like negative, bad feelings, understandably so. So yeah, not really my scene, which it's so associated with my industry that like I get why people wonder. But I think it's less associated in real life than is shown like in the media and stuff.
The next one is just a period. So
Okay.
not sure what that one is about. And then this one, uh, I don't know who they are and what they think this was, but you wild for what you did.
It's funny because the first thing I thought of was that yesterday I just sat and flipped people off, which I do a lot. I just sat and flipped people off for a while. And I think people are often shocked by my behavior at work. But at the end of the day, I'm an entertainer and I'm going to convey to you whatever I need to convey to you as an entertainer. Um, and I will try to do it in a very like playful way. But there was some people there that I didn't particularly like who had some bad blood with a friend of mine and they weren't tipping me. And so I just was like, I don't like you. Why are you staring at me? Stop staring at me. Go fuck yourself while I smile and flip you off because I'm still an entertainer, but like also get fucked. Um, so it's funny because like that was my first thought that I had was I'm like, who could that be? And I just thought of the most recent thing that had happened, which was yesterday. Um, but I would love to respond to that person and be like, you're gonna have to be more specific.
Yeah, I'm a stripper. It could be many.
Yeah, I work in a wild environment where I'm just flying by the seat of my pants, reacting on the fly, on my feet, you know, to whatever is happening. In an environment that, yeah, I kind of anything goes. Not anything goes, but a lot of things go. You know, you don't have a lot of jobs where you could just flip people off, you know, like that's not
Darn it.
acceptable work behavior. Um,
Was he okay?
yeah,
What time did you fall asleep last night?
I think like 3 o'clock, and I got up at 10. Who wants to know that? Why do you care?
I went to bed at 11 and woke up at 5:30.
Whoa, you're an adult.
Now these walks have just made me tired at 11. It's like
That's good.
I'm like trying to work late at night and I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm going to bed at 11.
Yeah, good for you.
Who's your best friend? This was not me.
Who's, oh yeah, that would be awkward. So I have two best friends outside of the club. I don't know if I should say their names. I don't think they'd care. One's named Layla. I grew up with her. I've been friends with her since 6th grade. She's actually the best friend who asked me to dress up as Elsa recently, if you do watch my social media, for her niece, because I did used to work for the Princess Festival. Did you know that? I've talked about that.
Yeah, you talked about it when I interviewed you on.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I used to do the casting for the Princess Festival and I used to play Cinderella. And so she remembers that and she's been asking me to do this. And, you know, she's just the type of best friend that like we don't talk all the time. We catch up a couple times a year. She's my oldest friend. And but like I can't say no to her because she asks for so little from me and I know she would be there for me in the blink of an eye if I needed anything. And she has been that person. She will always be that person for me. And I'm so grateful. So I do not like playing a princess. That is not what I feel like is in my wheelhouse. It is in the sense that like I was a nanny for many years and then I worked for the school district for 4 years. I mean, I probably spent a decade working with children, you know, to be honest. And so I really love children and I'm pretty good with them. And so I don't mind doing it. I guess I do. I don't know how to explain. I'm a conflicted person, and that's okay. I have many conflicting things about me, and that's okay. That's a normal way to be. But I don't know. I just don't feel like acting and being like a princess in that way is really part of my personality. So that it feels foreign to me. But I don't mind doing it for someone I love. But also, shoot, I forgot what I was going to say about that. Something about work. I think I'm decent at being an entertainer, so I can kind of channel that whatever direction that I want. Um, and so I don't, oh, this is what I was going to say. This is part of what makes it hard for me is that despite my years as an entertainer, despite my years as an actress, um, I still have stage fright, and it's gotten better. But anytime I perform in any way, even if it's playing a princess or whether it's going on stage at a club I've worked at for like 8, 9 years and doing something I've done repetitively, and it definitely got easier, but it doesn't mean that it ever really goes away from me. It really doesn't. And it makes me sad actually because I love being an entertainer. That's my calling, that's my passion. But it takes something from me. It really does. It's hard for me.
Yeah.
I'm giving something that's hard for me to give. And I guess like I don't know, there's a way I wanted to phrase that that like I I give because I love to do it, but it's hard for me. Anyways, so that's what was hard about it was that it's not really a character I identify with and that I was nervous to do it. You know, I was like, oh, I gotta dress up and wear this Elsa dress and like act like I'm Elsa, you know? It's stressful. But, you know, like I said, I want my friends that I deeply care about to know that they're really important to me. Like they're really fucking important to me. And so she's one of my best friends. My other best friend outside the club is my friend Rachel. She's been my friend. Ooh, I don't know. Like, I want to say like between 16 and 18 years. She's a really good friend of mine. I lived with her at one point. Um, but yeah, she's my other best friend. And then I don't know, I have different also other best friends in like different areas. Like Brooke's my best friend, Cookie Brooke is my best friend, sister category. Um my niece, you know, goes by Sativa at work that I work with. She's like my little sister best friend. Even though she's not actually my little sister, she's my niece. Um and she's kind of also like a work wife a little bit, you know, she fills that role a little bit. And that like we work together and we typically can work well together, which like I don't I've had dancers ask me to be like, you know, to work with them because that's a to tag team is kind of a good strategy in our industry. And I think probably any industry, you know, like two minds are better than one. But I don't mind doing that on temporary basis, but I'm not really down. I sometimes see girls like pair off and then like that's just stays their partner. And I'm kind of just down to clown with whoever's there. Like there's a guy or a woman and they like me and you. Let's then together we're working together tonight.
Yeah.
You're my work wife right now. But I kind of like to be free. I'm polyamorous. Like I need many work wives. I work best that way. But I would say if I have anything um the most similar to that, it'd be my work relationship with Sativa. Where like but it's different because she's like family to me. Not like she's like family to me. She is family to me. And so I feel, I don't know, it just runs deeper for us. Our history runs deep. Our trauma bonds run deep. You know, like she's someone who I can give a look to and she doesn't need to hear a word about how I'm feeling or what's going on. She reads it and she knows it. Um so yeah, those are some of my best friends. Oh, I just want to name all of them now, but I won't. I'll just kind of stick to those ones right now. But there's yeah, there's several women that I just love. And I know that I think I've said this before, but you know, I have three sisters, all of who I'm really close with. And so I just love women and I value so much my relationships with them and my friendships with them. And they're just so meaningful to me. But yeah, I love how I can just take one question and run. Are there any more?
Just the ones, are you single? Would you ever be with me? And of course, they're being anonymous, so it's just stupid ones like that.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. No comment, I guess.
And these questions aren't a dating application.
Yeah, lots of people think lots of things that aren't dating apps are dating apps. The club is the one I see the most. People just looking for a wife, looking for a girlfriend, and I'm like, it can happen, but it's not your best strategy.
Yeah,
It's really not. I'm not saying it can't happen because it does, but it's just not your best strategy.
yeah,
Um, yeah, was that all of them?
yeah.
Cool. We'll have to put out a call. I didn't know we had any because I hadn't, posted anything about requesting them.
Just every once in a while, one would pop up. So I guess people have seen. I don't know how they.
Yeah,
But
they see it and they're like, "Oh, cool, I'll send in a question."
so we finished season 2.
Yay!
We less. This one was less end of the world type of situations. So that was a plus. You know, pandemic and everything. Um,
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was interesting. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this season. I really appreciate you listening to my ramblings. I hope you got something out of them. I hope, you're taking something away that's useful to you. And if you don't, it was useful to me. So thanks anyways.
and as far as I know, we're doing a season 3, and that one might be more interview based. But
Yes, I'd like to do all interviews for season 3 with the women I work with. And there's a few, men I'd like to interview either that I work with or that I are, in a relationship with strippers. I think that would be some interesting podcasts. So stay tuned for next season. I think it's going to be good. I'm excited.
you have 20 to listen to until then. So just study those and have fun, and we'll be back soon.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.